Welcome back to part two of the Classic Cars team answering your questions. Richard, what's the first one you've got for us today?
First one is from Andrew. As a school child, I read and remember articles from Motor by Roger Bell, Hamish Cardno, Rex Greenslade et al. Which writers or articles influenced you?
To my shame, I can't actually remember the name of the writer, but the article was a 1977 road test, and it might have been the Motor, um, of the Aston Martin V8 Vantage, and the vivid description of its relentless acceleration and the sound and the feel of the car rekindled what was already quite a fire inside me about cars. And years later, when I became a motoring journalist, it inspired me to find my own words to really put the reader in the car. So rather than be influenced by his writing style, it was more about his approach to writing and others since.
I'd say one of the biggest influences on motoring journalism in general, people don't really respect the full scale of it in a way, was the so-called Australian invasion of the late 60s, early 70s, led by Ian Fraser. But when you consider people like Steve Cropley, Mel Nichols, Doug Blaine, people like that, it wasn't just the very sort of visceral, direct style that they wrote in. It was also the fact that they weren't beholden to the industry. They could be critical, they could be very insightful. They brought almost an investigative journalism approach to an industry that had been heavily dominated by industry insiders who I think were willing to give the industry quite a free ride sometimes. But outside of that, in terms of classic motoring journalism, Martin Buckley was a huge influence on me, not least because he came from the same kind of place, the same kind of background I did. I don't come from a world of collections in motorhomes in Surrey and, bequeathed heirlooms or anything like that. He came from the sort of back streets of Manchester where these things were secondhand and bodged up, and he had this wonderful way of kind of bringing the mighty down to earth, and he made me realise I could be a classic motoring journalist. But I'd say another influence on me would be writers on subjects other than journalism, other than motoring, sorry. Andrew Marr, for example, has a wonderful way of bringing history to life, and also just novelists. Read a good novel, they know how to tell a story.
For me, it would be a bit like Sam, I think, the Australian invasion, as Sam called it. So Steve Cropley, Mel Nichols, and later on, people like Richard Meaden from Evo magazine, John Barker, who used to work on performance car, I think, people like Sue Baker and, all those kind of era of people. So, yeah, they'd be my choices.
Good choices.
Next question is from David. The car I had, which I regret selling, was a 1967 Volkswagen Beetle 1500. It was totally original, one-owner car with American bumpers. I'll be interested to purchase the same make and model. What advice have we got for David?
Well, I'll pass on some advice that was given to me by a classic car broker. And he said, classic cars are like girlfriends. It's always a mistake to go back. And what he meant by that was the second time around the car, there's never the same thrill of that newly acquired car. The second one won't have all those embedded amazing experiences that the first one had. And surely it's far better to use your time and your resources to try something that you haven't had before. Cross another one off the bucket list.
As a counterpoint to that, for all I know, this person has tried several cars since then, and the reason why they regret letting that car go is because it was perfect for them. So I'd say set up alerts on classic car sales websites for something that matches that description. Join the clubs, get to know the cars in that club. I'm not saying stalk a car that suits you, but if you find one that does tick all the boxes, or just a number of them, and just keep tabs on them, then maybe, sooner or later one of those owners will want to move it on. And if they know that you're the right person to do it to, then you're there.
And I guess that would go for any classic, really, wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay, so kind of related. Michael says, I have a 1972 Porsche 911 2.4S oil side filler and matching numbers, which I bought and had totally and professionally restored 20 years ago. It's still in fabulous, near perfect condition. If I was to sell it, what might it be worth? And might I be better off waiting until next year when markets might recover a little?
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's a car, particularly in the UK, it doesn't come up for sale very often, so they're quite hard to value. But the Classic Cars price guide says something like 115 to 165, depending on how perfect it is. Obviously, that early version is going to be worth a bit more. So I would continue to do more of your own research into what they sell for. But certainly the classic car market for 50s and up to mid 60s classics has been going backwards for a while now. But I think Porsche 911 steps outside of that. It attracts a different demographic, a younger demographic, and the appeal of those cars, particularly the early ones, just continues to increase. So while the values might be a bit flat, or you might have seen them go back slightly recently, I think over the next few years they'll only increase in value. So probably now is not the best time to sell, and if you want some more money, maybe hang on for a year or two.
Okay. Kind of similar question. Tony says he's owned his Triumph Stag for 30 odd years. What classic car should he replace it with?
If the appeal is something comfortable, powerful, easygoing, then the Mercedes R107 SL, that's the 70s, the square-shaped SL, would do a very similar job. Beautiful build quality, waft along, buy a good one, incredibly dependable and robust car. Buy a bad one, it will be expensive. If the comfort and the power, you'd like to also add a more different experience, then maybe something like a Porsche 928 or a Citroën SM would be something to look at. But with the caveat that both those cars have the potential to come with much higher running costs. They're more complex, they're much more expensive when things do break. So it depends what your priorities are, really.
Yeah, I'd suppose I'd go right to the nub of the question and say, Tony, you've had it for 30 years. There's clearly something about it that you like. What is it about cars? What is it about classic cars that you love, that you want to keep with that Stag? But what is it about the Stag that makes you want to move it on? I suppose you could just draw up two columns of factors, and then from the positive column, go and find something that suits. But then again, the other thing to bear in mind, of course, is budget. I don't know how much Tony has to spend, whether it's just the trade-in value of the Stag. The R107 would be, I suppose, a good shout. But, do you want something a bit newer? Do you want something that still has that sense of British tradition about it? The MG RV8 might be a good shout. Then again, it's got no rear seats, so are rear seats something that you value? You see, you need to. So many people move through classics very quickly. I have done in the past, and I think one of the reasons is that we don't necessarily know what we like until we've tried it. And if you've owned a car for 30 years, there's got to be so many compelling things about that car that kept you holding on to that car. So what I would say, Tony, is don't throw it away in a hurry. Think about what you really like in that car.
Would a TVR of some description be a more modern kind of similar thing? Or
You're asking a slightly biased person here. Yeah, I've had two of them, and there's two more on my bucket list. But yeah, something like a TVR Chimera or a Griffith, which is fundamentally the same car.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they've got a fairly leery reputation, but actually, unless you go banzai in them, they're actually comfortable, powerful, very civilized things, firmly sprung, obviously only two seats, going back to Sam's point about whether the extra seats in the Stag are useful. But for a Chimera, probably not dissimilar values to the Stag as well. And well supported, great looking. I'll stop singing their praises, otherwise I'll end up buying another one this week.
Okay, so final question then. If you could take any car from your magazine's archives on a 2-week road trip without worrying about cost of maintenance, which car would you choose and what route would you drive it on to let it show off its best qualities?
Well,
That's quite a question.
for me, there's no car quite combines capability, ease of living with excitement like a 911 and 911 Porsche. And there's no car does it better that distills that essence than the 1972-73 RS 2.7. It would be the car to take on an epic drive, starting in Germany, over the Alps, daisy chaining all the best of the mountain passes together. Not necessarily the Stelvio, which is always clogged with tourists and can make for actually quite a disappointing drive, but any of the other great ones. Then down through the Italian lakes and on, because we've got 2 weeks to do this, so let's really milk it, on down to the Amalfi coast of Italy, and just thread your way down the coast. And along the way, great food and great wine. Do I have to ever come back from this trip?
This is about personal archives, I suppose, and the cars that we've driven that we've loved. And one of the cars that I really didn't want to give back actually arrived at a photo shoot as a substitute in the nick of time. It was a 456 GT Ferrari, originally bought new on my 10th birthday by Nigel Mansell. The original car that we had planned for that shoot broke down, and I called Mike Wheeler at Radley Motors. He was in the gym at the time, and I said, Mike, can you get a Ferrari to me in half an hour? And he amazingly said yes, and this thing arrived. And I was blown away by its combination of handling like an MX-5 and feeling surprisingly compact for something that is a spacious full four-seater GT, and yet it's got proper supercar performance. That car is all things whenever you want it to be, because at the same time it's not like some supercars, it's not constantly trying to hit the horizon. You can drive it like a saloon. I've never known anything to be such a competent all-rounder. And I'd be a bit more close to home. I'd take it on an epic road trip of the UK's A and B roads, including the North Coast 500 in Scotland. I'd just point it wherever I wanted it to go, and maybe even take a tent, stop wherever I pleased. Because I think one of the great things about driving great roads is sometimes when you're familiar with the kind of road and you're familiar with the surroundings, you can be a little bit more gung-ho about the way that you tackle those bends. Whereas, sometimes when you're driving in unfamiliar surroundings, you tend to back off and it's not quite as enjoyable. So I'd definitely taken some of my favourite British roads, but the Ferrari 456, I've never known a better all-rounder. There's a model of one on my desk at home on a slab of wood. Don't think I'll ever afford one, but
Sounds like a great trip. Richard?
Well, funnily enough, I put Porsche 911 Carrera RS 2.7 on my list too.
I'll fight you for it.
And again, somewhere maybe not, as you say, Stelvio, but Greater Glockner or something, or those kind of places. Although if that's already gone, maybe a BMW 2002 Turbo, if that's not too frenetic, I guess, on those kind of roads. But yeah,
just watch out for turbo lag.
Yes.
And power kicking in mid-bends when it's raining. Well, Richard tells me that's all the questions we've got time for, so thank you for sending them in. As you know, you can always write into the letters page and we'll do our best to answer there as well. So it's just from me, Phil Bell, Richard Gooding and Sam Dawson to say thank you, and we'll see you in next month's issue.